hate the world today. You're so good to me, I know, but I can't change.
Hey everybody, it's Stephanie. I am on my way to base, so this video is going to be kind of disjointed. You will see me going now and coming back. Anyway, a viewer on a different channel, I think it was Geeks and Gamers, maybe, asked me to do a video on strong women, and I assume he meant Star Wars, so I thought I would do it. And what is a strong woman and what is not? There are strong women in Star Wars, at least in the OT. We have Padme Amidala and Leia and Mon Mothma. And when I was growing up back in the 70s and 80s, there were two women who are very, 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 very strong characters in real life. Margaret Thatcher, and before any of the lefties out there start screaming at me, you know, who else are you gonna name? Okay, be quiet. And Golda Meir, both ascended to the highest offices in their respective countries, the UK and Israel. Both went through a massive amount of adversity, economic adversity in the UK, the Falklands Islands War, the end of the Cold War for Margaret Thatcher, and basically trying to wean Britain off of socialism, and not very successful either, by the way. I mean, after a generation or two, human beings are lazy, and if they don't have to work for something, they won't. And I honestly think that human beings like being treated like children, which goes into the laziness factor, but that's for another video, another time. I'm not here to talk politics. And then, of course, you know, Golda Meir, Israel is still a young country. You know, the 72 Olympics in Munich, with the kidnapping of those Israeli athletes and their murder and hunting those terrorists down. I think it was the Yom Kippur War that she was prime minister while this stuff was going on. So both women went through a lot of adversity. And when I think of strong women in fiction and what women actually in real life actually sort of echoed Thatcher and Meir, I think of Mon Mothma. We don't know a lot about Mon Mothma in the OT, and we find out a little bit more about her. She is basically after the death of Bail Organa, the brains and the leadership and the cohesiveness behind the rebellion and the alliance. Senator from Chandrilla, a leader in her own right, very intelligent, very tough, very savvy, and I think a very good, strong role model. Now let's go I'm going to go to Padme and Leia in the next part of this video. Let's go to bad role models. The sequels are full of bad female role models. I can think of a worse one than Admiral Amilyn Holdo. She's an embarrassment. First off, I'm going to explain something to you. If you grew up and studied anything about social history, cultural history, whatever, the lavender color of her hair and her outfit is indicative that she is a lesbian. And she hates men. And it's very obvious by the way she treats Poe. Now, I don't give a shit about that, but why advertise it? Again, it's making a point. It's making a fuck you point to all of us. And it's also an attempt at changing Leia's character into something vulgar and disgusting. You know, I'm sorry, but once you go Corellian, you don't go back. Alright? And I'm pretty sure George Lucas had the right take on Leia. So, Rian Johnson, fuck you and fuck Admiral Holdo. and I mean that. I'm gonna drop F-bombs here, and I really don't give a shit. So anyway, why is she a bad character beyond the obvious social justice? Well, she's a bad character because there's no business for a person with her attitude and her sociopathy being a general officer or flag officer. I have done enough reading about Dwight Eisenhower, George Patton, George Marshall, Omar Bradley, John Buford, Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain, Stonewall Jackson, Robert E. Lee, U.S. Grant, William Tecumseh Sherman, Napoleon. I mean, I've read Clausewitz on war auf Deutsch. So, you know, and I've known a lot of generals. I've known a lot of admirals. I've known a lot of men who are generals. In fact, I talked to 4 of them this last Thursday. Hung out with 4. I've known a lot of women who were flag officers and general officers. So here's the thing. They are soldiers, Marines, airmen, and sailors before they are ever man or woman. That is how you do your job. That is how you see yourself. Okay? So the idea that she is a woman beating up on a guy like Poe, and then she's wearing admiral's pips is absolutely effing ludicrous. It's bad military. It's a bad representation of the military, and it's a bad. It's bad all around. It's bad leadership, and anybody who saw that, who understands and knows, would know that and should know that. Okay, so you know, when I saw that, I was like, you know, I'm not gonna tell you my plan. I mean, she has that smile on her face. I don't want to break her fucking nose. So, you know, that's how you treat your staff, and ostensibly, Poe is part of her staff. He is, all right. Let's say the leader of her fighter squadrons. What's left of it? Basically, a general officer in her position would have a plan given to her. She would be making up her own mind on several different options. She would not just go, I have a plan, and I'm not going to tell you. That is just Ryan Johnson's lazy-ass writing, trying to fit a lesbo into, you know, a place where that commentary doesn't belong. An awful woman who treats men like shit. And a woman who doesn't take her position as a general officer and an admiral, a flag officer, seriously. She was unneeded. And she's basically a very bad fictional role model for girls. As is Rose Tico, and her beating up a Finn, her basically lecturing on, you know, capitalism, which, you know, bitch, ultimately you work for Disney, so you have no right to talk about capitalism. But I will get onto that. In the next video, I'll dive in more. This is Steph signing out for now.
I don't envy you. I'm a little bit of everything. I'll roll into one. I'm a bitch.
Hey guys, it's Steph. I'm back. Let's talk a little bit about Rose Tico. I don't really want to go into her because I think she's such a non-entity that, you know, using her as a example of a strong female is, no, you just don't do that. I think what bothers me most about the sequels is it basically, in the end, makes women look really bad. You know, think about 30 years between the end of Return of the Jedi and The Force Awakens, and, you know, the shit's hit the fan again. And all this female leadership has failed. You know, and if someone is going to go out there and try to rationalize to me why this is a good example for women to follow. Sorry, it's not. In fact, I'm going to be brutally honest. My favorite new characters from Disney's shitty new canon is Draven, the one general whose name I can never remember, who got killed over Scarif, and both of them were in Rogue One, and Lor San Tekka. You could do a lot with those characters. There's something solid behind them. But the women, I mean, even Jyn Erso, who I think is actually a much better female character than Rey by far, is kind of one-dimensional and really a non-entity. The fact that she has a relationship with her father, and it seems like a fairly good one, gives her some credence, but I'm not impressed. So let's talk about the women in Star Wars who are strong and why. You have Padme Amidala and Leia Organa, or Leia Solo. Both are very young in their respective roles as leaders. Both were thrown into catastrophic circumstances that they persevered through. Padme had to make a choice in the end between following her husband, who was so far gone not even she could really rescue him, and saving herself and her kids. And she basically, what Padme does is basically, not that she sacrifices her relationship with Anakin so much as she saves her children from what he had become, and saves herself from what he had become, and in the end saves him from doing something more horrible than he'd already done. So think about that. Now, and she dies in that sacrifice. Leia is already a leader. She's gone through torture and emotional trauma of seeing her planet and her family killed, her father, her mother, her friends, everything she's ever known. She's rescued, and she's basically one of the deleted scenes. Han tells her in The Empire Strikes Back, she's as cold as the planet they were on, Hoth. And that's an interesting scene because you see that she's cut herself off from actually having any sort of natural feelings that a woman would have when she's got a guy like Han Solo interested in her. And it's obvious that, he doesn't really care too much for the politics of the rebellion. He stayed with the rebellion for her. I mean, he's not making any money, smuggling stuff for the rebels, going on missions for them. He's basically there, in his own way, protecting her. So if you think about it, that's a big deal. And he sacrificed a lot of his, he's sacrificed a lot of stuff, including trying to get back to pay off Jabba because of how he feels about her. And she's trying to stop not feeling the same way for him. And, and he knows deep down inside she does. And, she uses Luke as a piece of armor against him. She, tries to use the Alliance, basically saying, why don't you stay with us? You're a natural leader, instead of saying, stay with us because I need you. But in the end, he gets through to her, and she surrenders to those feelings. And the thing about that is that you've got this girl, and her character arc is very personal, and it's wrapped up with Solo's. their character arcs are not necessarily part of saving the galaxy. It's saving each other. He saves her in some ways, and she saves him. Saves him body and soul. And I'm going to tell you this. A woman's greatest achievement in her life is not going to be her career. It's not going to be her how popular she was amongst of people that didn't really give a shit about her. It's going to be her family, her husband, and her kids. And of all that, if you can be the woman like Leia was, be the woman that makes the man want to be a better man, then that's all you need. And that's what she did. And ultimately, that's your greatest victory. All right? That is her greatest moment. And, his greatest, moment was allowing this hard-headed girl who is terrified of him into his life and changing for her. And he doesn't know he's changing. He just does. And after he's rescued from Jabba, it's quite obvious that his commitment is to her and to her damn rebellion. That's what Leia did. And to me, it's magnificent. Okay, to me, that is a relationship. And, I'm going to get into this more in a minute. I'm at the bank right now. I have to go through the drive-thru. So, what does it take to be a strong woman? I really don't think that the sequels in Star Wars are really good examples of femininity and womanhood at all. You know how I feel about Holdo? She's ridiculous. She's a cartoon character. She's a social justice construct. There's no business. She has no business even being in this movie. And she's there just to muddy the waters for other characters. She's there just to, fuck you to normal relationships. Fuck you to men in general. She's almost like the female version of Rian Johnson. His issue with, manly men. And he does have one. So, I just go, she's ridiculous. And she's not a good role model. And fictional characters and heroes are role models. For 40 years, Luke Skywalker's been a role model for all of us. Han Solo's been a role model for all of us. Leia has been a role model for all of us. So, now they're just, throwing this social engineering shit in, and it doesn't fit the Star Wars universe. And, if they wanted to have that sacrifice mean something, just use Akbar. All right, just like Admiral Braddock in Rogue One. Okay, so anyway, you got that, and then Rose Tico is ridiculous, not even worthy of mention. The destruction of Leia's character, like Han and Luke's, is complete. What's really funny is I don't think J.J. Abrams really meant all of that to happen. I think, again, I'm going to say this again, I think Kathleen Kennedy completely lost control of Rian Johnson, and if you look at some of the questions coming out about how much money was actually spent making The Last Jedi and what they actually took back, and it doesn't, she doesn't really make a case for female studio heads. And I think there should be some female studio heads. If you're competent and she's incompetent. You can't just put someone in a place in a position of power and expect them, because they're women, to perform well. They have to perform well, and as far as I'm concerned, she hasn't performed well. So, you know, she's a bad role model, and she's out there real. Ray is a horrible role model. She's perfect, nothing's wrong, untouchable. It's bullshit. As a woman, I'm offended by her. I'm offended by all those women. I'm offended by the way Poe was treated by, you know, that bitch Holdo. I'm offended by the way he was treated by Leia. And the Leia we knew at the end of Return of the Jedi would not do what she did in the last Jedi. So, you know, what the F, you know? So, you know, we've got all that going on. They're just bad role models. Because here's the deal. Leia went through hell. Padme went through hell. These two women were really glorious characters, were written by a man who has women, I think, figured out. A lot of women who are feminazis don't think so. But I think as a woman, I was not offended by anything George Lucas did. I think if you're offended by what George Lucas did, you're an insecure female, a truly insecure female. And, you know, you're uncomfortable with your own sexuality. You're uncomfortable with your own femininity. And you're afraid of men. All right? It's stupid. So there's that. You know, he understood that women go through really trying times, and we have weaknesses. Leia's weakness is her fear of falling in love, fear of feeling anything for anybody, using, you know, her not romantic feelings for Luke against Han, which is what that was. I'm going to use it as that because in the end, if you think about it, you really look at the OT as a whole, that's what she was doing. You know, that was a weakness. The ability to fall in love and to allow yourself to surrender to those feelings is not a weakness, it's a strength. Being afraid of it and denying it is weak. Letting yourself be vulnerable to a man who loves you is a beautiful thing. I know a lot of feminazis out there who are out there in the culture, who teach school, are basically telling you girls' lies, and they're not telling you the truth. The truth is, women need men. And I think that was the gist of Leia's character. I don't think Carrie would agree with me, but it really was the gist of her character. She really did need Han. He really did need her. And it's a beautiful thing, and it should be celebrated. You know, and it's a timeless story. It's a romantic, beautiful story. Let's see. Padme's sacrifice for her children and her willingness to let Anakin go and her heartbreak, it might be looked on as weakness for raging feminazis, but it wasn't. See, here's the deal. As I've said this before, you are going to go through hell as a woman. We all do. There are going to be short moments of joy and long moments of horror, sadness, fear, and devastation. Your heart will break. It's just the way it is. You're not weak because of it. All right? You will bring different things to a relationship with the different men in your life. You have to learn to accept your femininity, to be a woman, to accept that you will be vulnerable to things, to find your strength, to understand when you're being hosed and lied to, and to walk away from it. Here's my rule. The weakest women I know are the biggest feminists I know. They're the ones that bought the feminist line, hook, line, and sinker, have found themselves in terrible relationships with men, and keep going on. And yet, they hate men. I don't know why. But then I think the relationships with ships that they've had with men reflect their experiences. If all you've ever known are guys like Harvey Weinstein, of course you're going to hate men. If you only knew guys like my dad, my husband, you know, a lot of the alpha guys I know in the military and out there in the business world, you'd love men. You know, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I'm more comfortable with a group of guys smoking cigars than I am with a bunch of crazy women. All right? I really don't have anything in common with most women because they try too hard to be something they're not. All right? You know, and you can find the role models you need. Leia, Padme, other fictional role models for women. Clara Allen in Lonesome Dove is a great one. You know, Charlie in Top Gun is a great one. You know, you just bring a different thing to a relationship. And again, don't buy the feminist shit. Men are wonderful. They're glorious, sometimes crazy, sometimes insane creatures. But you love them. You gotta love them. I mean, that's what they're there for. You're there to help them. They're there to help you. And don't buy into the feminist stuff. You have all the freedom you will ever need. In fact, right now, ladies, you are the most free of any group of women that have ever lived on this planet. Right now in the United States of America. Okay? All right? So think about that. And then ask yourself, why do you need the rest of this feminist crap? Okay? You don't. So walk away from it. A lot of girls are right now. You know, because it doesn't do you any good. All right? It doesn't do these women who are, I think, mentally unstable any good. It really doesn't. And, you know, they're afraid of sex. They're afraid of falling in love. They're afraid of being a woman with a man around, you know? And that is sad. And you're all very young. You have all this time on your hands. But someday you're going to be 50 years old like me. And you're going to wonder where it all went. And you're going to look at the choices you made. And some of them are not going to be good. Because ultimately, in the female-male relationship thing, 90% of the time, you are the common denominator in that mistake. Okay? And if you keep making the same mistakes with the same kind of man, that's on you. Alright? And that is the ultimate expression of female equality. Alright? Because you make those choices. Okay? So think about it. And who taught us better than Leia? Who taught us better than Padme? And who are the worst examples? Holdo, Rose. Okay? So, this is Steph, signing out. See you on the galaxy.